She heard the knock before her boots found the floor. 3 soft taps, then nothing. She waited, one hand on the side table, one breath held. The fire in the hearth was more ember than flame, now just a faint red pulse behind the iron grate. She let it burn low every night, not out of thrift but stubbornness. The house hadn't earned warmth, not since the year the cornfield went quiet and the mail stopped coming with names she recognized. Second knock, lighter this time, almost nervous. She crossed the room in silence, stopped just before the door, listened again. Nothing. Her fingers slid the latch free. Hinges gave a tired groan. Wind pushed in, not hard, just cold enough to remind her bones that another winter had started without asking her first. The porch was empty, except for the crate. It sat square against the door frame, like whoever left it knew she'd open slowly. Wood slats nailed crude, uneven. Older wood, dull with ash. Smelled like dry cellar dirt and maybe pine. She didn't touch it, just looked. A folded cloth hung over the top edge, pale, frayed, and moving. Not from the wind, from breath. She knelt. There were no sounds, no coos, no cries, just soft rhythmic movement beneath the cloth like a breathing chest. She lifted the fabric. Inside, curled and wrapped in a soot-streaked quilt, was a baby. Eyes closed, thumb against his mouth, not quite sucking. Cheeks red with cold but not purple. Still breathing. Alive. No blood, no bruises, no cord. Just the baby. And a note, folded twice. Stuck under the baby's hand, smudged black along the edges like someone had used fireplace ash for ink. She hasn't read it yet, just stared at the curve of the letters. Then she looked again at the baby. "Who left you?" she whispered. The baby stirred. "Where's your mother?" He hiccuped once, settled back into silence. She took the crate inside, not the whole thing, just slid her arms under the baby and quilt, careful not to disturb the note. Set him on the old chair beside the hearth, then stood still, waiting for something to feel. It didn't come. She reached for the firewood. By the time she got the fire going again, the baby had started making small, wet noises, not cries, just noise enough to remind her he was real. She lit the lamp. "Read the note. This one belongs where the fire stays warm, nothing else. No name, no signature, no explanation." She read it again, then a third time. "Then I burned it." The knock came again before daylight. She was ready this time. I opened the door slowly. Sheriff Hodge stood there, hat in hand, face ruddy from the cold, boots muddy despite the frost. "Did you see anything strange this morning?" "Plenty," she said. "Want coffee?" He didn't answer. Just stepped inside, slow like a man who half expects to be shot. His eyes went straight to the baby. "That's yours." "No." "Then whose?" "You tell me." He looked back at her. "You found him?" "Number he found me." "You feed him?" "Of course I did." He scratched his cheek. "Note. Burned it." "Why?" "Didn't like what it said." "What did it say?" "Said he belongs where the fire stays warm." The sheriff exhaled through his nose, real slow. He didn't sit, didn't touch the baby. "That fire's burned in this house for a long time," he said. "Not for everyone." Number not for everyone. She turned toward the hearth. "You think he's from town?" "Don't know." "You think he's yours?" He looked up at her hard. "No." Silence sat heavy. Then, "You gonna keep him?" he asked. "I didn't say that." "But you didn't hand him over either." "Not yet." He stepped forward, then stopped at the rug's edge. "That note's not a name." "Number, it's not." "Any scent on him?" "Smoke. Ash. The quilt smells like pine needles and river mud. Clothes look hand-stitched. The quilt's old. Baby's not." He finally looked down at the child. Not long. Just enough to let her know he'd made a decision about something. "If I find out who left him, you won't." "You think so?" "I know so." He looked at the fire. "You'll need milk." "I've lived without it." He shook his head. "Not anymore." Then he left. She boiled water, mashed oats, held the baby against her chest and waited for instinct to tell her something. It didn't. He didn't cry much, just looked at her sometimes with eyes too quiet for a child, like he already knew something she didn't. She checked the quilt again. Each patch was different. Cornflower blue, faded maroon, squares of linen and dark wool. The stitchwork near the hem had a pattern, looped vines, a small square flame, a tiny bird stitched backward. She flipped it over. Near the center, beneath the lining, one patch felt thicker. She worked her finger into the seam, picked the edge free. Something slid out. Folded cloth, darker than the rest. It had a name stitched in it, burned at the edge. 3 letters left. Ben. She stared at it for a long time. Ben who? She folded it back up, slipped it under the hearthstone. The baby coughed once. She looked over. He smiled. Night came down hard and quiet. She set the baby in a box lined with towels, kept him near the fire. Sleep didn't come. Not really. The wind rattled something outside. Maybe a horse post. Maybe a footstep. She didn't check. Let the fire burn all night. Didn't feed it once. Still, it never went out. The baby didn't cry that morning. He blinked slowly at the ceiling beams, kicked once, and settled into silence. The widow rocked the old chair with one boot pressed to the floor. She watched him the whole time. No name came to her, not even a guess. His eyes were darker now in the daylight. Not brown, not blue, just dark. The safe fire still held from the night before. She hadn't added anything, hadn't needed to. It clung to the center of the hearth like it knew it was being watched. She didn't trust things that stayed alive without help. Not fires, not men, not babies left in crates. She held him, then I didn't. Laid him back in the box, folded the quilt over his legs, checked the corner where the cloth had been burned. The name was still half missing. Ben. No last name, no initials. Just 3 letters sewn into cloth and burned at the edge like whoever stitched it had changed their mind too late. She stood, poured hot water over dry oats, waited. 3 knocks hit the door. Harder than before. She didn't flinch this time. It opened slowly. Sheriff Hodge stood in the same boots, hat lower this time, jaw unshaven. He nodded once. Morning. You came back. You knew I would. I hoped you wouldn't. He stepped inside, didn't look around. Eyes went to the hearth, then to the box beside it. Still here. Where would he go? You could have sent a word. Someone at the station. I didn't want someone at the station. Why not? They'd take him. Maybe that's what's meant. She shook her head. No one leaves a baby like that by mistake. He moved toward the box, stopped a foot away. You named him yet? No. Plan to? No. Why not? Not mine to name. But you fed him. He was hungry. You kept him warm. He was cold. You care. She looked at him. Long. Quiet. I didn't say that. He nodded once, took his hat off, let it hang at his side. Have you ever heard of a woman out past Old Bridge Road? No one lives there anymore. Exactly. What are you saying? We got tire tracks from that way. You think she left him? Could have. Might be someone else. You checked the river? Not yet. You checked the woods? Too cold last night. You checked the barn behind Tucker's field? His eyes lifted. What barn? The one with no roof. That barn caved 5 years ago. Still standing. He looked at the fire again. Smoke curled, soft and steady. You read the note again? I told you. Burned it. But you remember it. She didn't answer. He turned to her. You do, don't you? She nodded once. Say it back to me. She hesitated. This one belongs where the fire stays warm. He didn't blink. You know what that means? No. You sure? I said no. He took a step toward the fire, looked up at the rafters. Who else lived in this house? My husband. Before him, his father. Before that, I don't know. You should. She moved to stand in front of him. Are you saying it matters? I'm saying this house is old. Fireplaces don't burn this long, and places that forget things. What things? Names, blood, promises. He looked down at the baby. Have you ever lit a fire that never went out? No. Then why's yours still burning? She didn't answer. The baby stirred. Soft sound. No cry. Sheriff Hodge stepped back. Do you notice anything about the quilt? Yes. What? It's been washed, but not recently. One patch is newer. The rest are worn. Any symbols? A flame. Where? Near the hem. Color. Orange thread. He nodded again. Have you seen that pattern before? No. I have. Where? My mother's coat. She blinked. That was 30 years ago. He shrugged. Same stitch. Could be coincidence. Could be. She crossed her arms. Then what do you want, Sheriff? I want to know who stitched that. Why? Because whoever did also burned the name. You think they're the same person, don't you? She looked down. Maybe. Then we've got two questions. What are they? Who's Ben? And who wanted him forgotten? The fire cracked. The baby blinked. He still didn't cry. Later, after he left, she rocked in the chair again. Arms folded. The box sat closer now, near her feet. She kept her heel resting against one edge. The fire hadn't needed more wood. Still, it glowed. She opened the drawer by the hearth, pulled out the cloth, ran her thumb along the three letters. Ben. No last name, no trail. But the fabric was stitched into something older. She turned it over. A mark. Tiny. Tucked in the thread. A small triangle. Inside it, the flame again. She looked at the baby. He stared back now, didn't blink. She felt it then, slow and full. A throb behind her ribs. Something almost like memory, but not hers. High. The house held quiet. The fire held steady. And for the first time in years, she added wood without thinking. Sheriff Hodge didn't say a word on the ride back. The horse didn't need guiding. The trail knew his weight by now. Knew how to carry silence through the cold. He'd been up the Widow's Hill twice in 24 hours. That alone was enough to make folks talk, but it wasn't the visit that made his hands shake when he got back to the station. It was the crate. It was a fire that never went out. And it was the name, the one burned halfway through the cloth. Ben. Just 3 letters, but it rang like a name he almost remembered. Not from files, not from court, from somewhere quieter, somewhere warm. He stepped into the office. Deputy Harlan stood by the stove, loading logs. "Long morning," Harlan asked. Hodge took off his coat. "Cold one. Did you find anything?" "Maybe." "Baby still breathing?" "Yeah." "Widow keeping it?" "Didn't say, but she hasn't thrown him out." "Wouldn't blame her if she did." "Neither would I." Harlan handed him coffee. "You want the book?" Hodge nodded. The ledger was thick, frayed at the corners, spine taped 3 times. A long wooden box kept it locked most days. Names went in, rarely came out. Harlan dropped it on the table. Page 46 still missing. "Yeah, figures." Hodge opened the lock, turned past dozens of entries. Arsons, land disputes, runaways, births with no fathers, deaths with no witnesses. He stopped at page 47, blank. He turned back 1 page, torn clean, not frayed, ripped with purpose. He reached into his coat, pulled a scrap of paper from his inside pocket. Not the original note. That was ash now. This was just a line he scribbled after. Ben, unnamed, age unknown, origin unknown, left on the widow's porch. The quilt shows signs of fire damage. He wrote it into the margin, then paused, stared at the empty page. "Sheriff?" "Yeah." "You think this is tied to that girl?" "What girl?" "The one that went missing 10 winters back." "A lot of girls have gone missing, Harlan." "Yeah, but this one never made the papers." Hodge didn't respond. "She was 16, Harlan said. "Lived out near where that bridge used to be." "No name?" "Folks say she didn't have one. Mama kept her inside. The house burned down later that same year." "Any records?" "Nope. That's why it never stuck. No one could prove she ever existed." Hodge looked back at the page. "Why are you bringing her up now? Fire, quilt, silence. It all feels familiar. You're reaching. Maybe. Have you ever seen that quilt pattern before?" "The flame?" "Yeah." "No, I have." Harlan tilted his head. "Where?" "My mother's coat. Same stitch, same thread, same burn mark near the hem." "You think there's a tie?" "I don't believe in ties anymore. Just loops." "What kind?" "Ones that tighten when you ignore them." Harlan stared at the stove. "You think the baby's hers?" "Could be. But that girl would have been, 26 by now. Maybe she made it. Or maybe someone else raised the child. Or maybe someone tried to bury him." Hodge flipped to the back of the ledger. There, on the inner cover, was an old penciled symbol, a triangle. Inside it, a small stitched flame. "Have you ever noticed this mark?" "No. Someone drew it." "When?" "Long before me." "You think it's a signature?" "Number, it's a warning." He shut the book, locked it, stood staring at the key. "I'm heading to the orchard." "Why?" "There's a woman living behind it. Miss Althea." Yeah. She ain't spoken in years. She might now. Harlan rubbed his jaw. You think she stitched that quilt? I think she remembers who did it. The orchard wasn't far. The trees were bare now, skeleton rows cutting through cold wind. The shed behind them was still standing, though barely. Slats missing. The roof bowed like it didn't care to hold snow anymore. He knocked on the side panel. Althea. Silence. He knocked again. Sheriff Hodge, I need a word. Nothing. He tried the door. It opened. She sat inside on an old chair wrapped in wool, a small fire in a tin pail near her feet. The room smelled like dirt and thread. Althea. She didn't look up. He stepped in, held the quilt square he'd taken from the baby's box. Have you seen this before? No answer. He laid it on the stool beside her. This came with a baby. No name, just a note. Her eyes shifted, slow. He waited. You remember a girl who lived near the bridge? She blinked once. The house burned. Another blink. No records. Stillness. She wore a coat like my mother's. Same stitch. Same symbol. He pointed to the threadwork. The triangle with the flame. What's it mean? She opened her mouth. Nothing came. Althea. She raised her hand. Crooked finger pointed toward the back wall. A line of cloth hung there. Quilts, shawls, fragments. At the center, a full square. Deep red. Flame stitched in orange. The name below it was the same. Ben. He stepped forward. Who stitched that? She looked down. His voice dropped. Was it you? Her hand twitched once. Then she spoke. First word in over 10 years. Benedict. He froze. His full name? She nodded. Who named him? Her eyes filled with something heavy. She looked at the fire near her feet. Whispered. His mother. Who was she? Althea looked up and said, The fire. Sheriff Hodge rode back slowly. He didn't stop at the station, just rode past it, toward the widow's house. Ledger still locked, but burning now in his mind. The baby was quiet that morning. He stared at the ceiling like it had something to say. The crate sat beside the hearth, a cushion folded under his back, the quilt pulled to his chin. She stood near the stove, watching from behind the steam of a blackened kettle. She hadn't told anyone, hadn't stepped outside. The sheriff hadn't returned, and she wasn't sure she wanted him to. There was something in the room now. Not just the baby, not just the fire. It was in the walls, the floorboards, something old that hadn't moved in years. She brought the kettle over and sat down beside the crate. The fire hadn't gone out all night. She'd waited for it to die on its own, but it held. Stronger now. Not loud. Just sure of itself. She didn't like that. Fires needed feeding. This one didn't. She leaned in closer to the quilt, ran her hand along the edge. The cloth was rough in places, soft in others. Too many materials for one maker. The patchwork wasn't random. It was structured, like it was saying something. She noticed the black marks for the first time. Soot, maybe. Ash woven into the threads. She pressed her fingers against the hem. They came back gray. Not her fire. Too old for that. She lifted the baby's arm, gently turned him, checked the inside lining of the quilt. That's where she found it. The stitching was too precise. Not patchwork. More like sealing. Someone had hidden a second layer behind the main panel and sewn it shut like a secret. She pinched the edge between her fingers, tugged lightly. It didn't move. She got the scissors, small ones, dull at the tips. She slid one blade under the seam and snipped. The thread gave with a soft sound, like breath being let go. She peeled the cloth back. I felt warmth, like the fabric still remembered what it had survived. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a flat square of darker fabric, charred at the corners, smelled like candle soot and mold. She unfolded it. The name hit her like a breath through cold glass. Benedict. Orange thread, sharp needlework, tight letters, burned at both ends, but still readable. 7 letters. A name not meant to be seen again. Her hand shook, not violently, just enough that she couldn't fold the cloth back right away. The baby made a sound. She didn't turn. The hearth popped once. Loud. Sharp. She looked up. The flame hadn't shifted. Still steady. Still watching. She set the cloth on the table, spread it flat, studied each letter like a confession. Who named you? She whispered. The baby sucked his thumb. You shouldn't be here. Another pop from the fire, like it disagreed. She reached forward, touched the name again. Benedict. It wasn't a name people used around here. Not anymore. Maybe once, a long time ago, there'd been a boy, or a man, or both. Maybe a story. She remembered something vague. A girl too young. A house too far from the road. No one wanted to talk about it back then. She folded the cloth and tucked it in the drawer beside the hearth, pushed it all the way to the back. The baby slept all afternoon. She left him near the warmth, turning him once when his face got too red. The box had a small crack down one side. She patched it with a rag, then rubbed her hand along the top rail. That's when she felt it. Roughness, like splinters, but not new ones. She tilted the crate toward the light. There, on the inner wall, a mark, barely visible, almost rubbed out. It looked like someone had tried to erase it with their thumb. She spat on her sleeve, rubbed gently. The shape cleared. A triangle. Inside it, 3 stitched flames, the same symbol the sheriff had shown her in the ledger. She sat back. I watched the baby breathe. After supper, she walked to the well. The bucket is still dry, rope stiff. She let it drop and didn't listen for the splash. Just wait. Then reeled it back in. Still dry. She carried. Water from the pump instead. Halfway to the porch, she stopped. A feather stuck out from the fence post. Jet black. Curved, clean, not windblown, placed. She plucked it out, broke it in half, tossed it in the snow. Didn't speak, didn't pray, just went back inside. That night, she placed the baby in the crate and sat across from him. The quilt lay over his chest. She stared at it. The stitches weren't random. The patches weren't scraps. She saw the story now, left to right, top to bottom. In one corner, a house. In the next, a cradle, then a flame. Then a triangle, then the name, Benedict. She lifted the baby out, held him to her chest. He didn't cry, just breathed against her. She whispered, I don't know who you are. His hand curled against her neck, but someone burned your name to keep you hidden. She walked to the drawer, took out the cloth, hold it to the firelight. Someone wanted you buried in warmth, not dirt. The baby made a soft sound. She unfolded the cloth. Each letter glowed in the firelight, clean orange, like the stitcher had meant it to last forever. She pressed it flat on the table, ran her finger under each letter. B-E-N-E-D-I-C-T. She looked at him. He looked back. Benedict, she said, voice low. The fire popped again, this time louder, like the house heard her, like it remembered. She didn't sleep. The name stayed in the room with her, wrapped around her, like the warmth from the fire that refused to go out. The boy, now named, slept through the night, and the flame didn't flicker once. The widow wrapped the baby in the quilt and walked out before sunrise. The air bit her hands. The crate sat empty near the hearth, warm only from memory. She didn't look back. The orchard was just beyond the ridge, trees bare, reaching. Nothing moved but the crows, quiet for once. She followed the dirt trail down the slope, boots crunching frozen ground. Her fingers never loosened on the quilt. The shed sat low in the trees, half buried in rust and vines. No smoke, no light, but someone lived inside. Everyone knew. No one said it. She knocked once. Nothing. She knocked again. Still nothing. The baby made a soft sound in her arms. Not a cry, just a small breath like he was testing the cold. She opened the door. It didn't resist. Inside, dim. A single cot, shelves stacked with jars, buttons, broken things, a long, cold stove, and in the back corner, hunched over a threadbare blanket, sat the woman they used to call Althea. She didn't look up. The widow waited. Althea's voice came low, slow. You shouldn't have brought him. I didn't know who else would know. Althea lifted her eyes. Sharp, not cloudy like age should have made them, just still. You think I'll name him? No. You think I'll claim him? No. Then why? I think you remember the stitch. Althea stared at the quilt. Didn't blink. Have you seen the mark? Yes. In the thread? Yes. In the crate? Yes. And still you carry him? I didn't leave him. Althea nodded once. The others didn't either. Didn't matter. The baby stirred. Althea stood. Her back was bent, but not from weakness. She moved closer. I looked straight at the child. What's his name? Benedict. Who told you? No one. Althea nodded again. You found it? Sewn into the quilt. Hidden. Burned. Yes. You unfold it. I did. Althea touched the quilt with 2 fingers. This pattern's mine. The widow didn't answer. But not the boy. Who stitched his name? My niece. She's the one who— No. Then who? Althea looked away. Fire eats truth before it eats wood. The baby cried once. Short. Sharp. Althea turned to him. Shh, now. He went still. The widow stared. Althea reached for a small jar on the shelf, poured a pinch of something into her hand, rubbed it between her palms, brought her hands near the baby's head. The widow stepped back. What is that? Juniper and ash. Why? So he remembers. Remember what? Who lit the fire? I don't understand. Althea sighed. Then you shouldn't have come. You said this pattern's yours. Years ago. Where else did it go? Nowhere. Someone else used it. Althea looked at her again. No one else stitched that mark, but others carried it. Carried it where? Through the woods, through the water, through the barn. The barn? You know which one. The widow's hands tightened. You think this baby came from there? I don't think so. You believe it. I remember it. The widow whispered. That barn burned. Althea's voice didn't change. It still does. The baby started to fuss. Althea didn't move. Then quiet, her voice slipped into song. Low, older than the house, older than the orchard. Not a lullaby, not prayer. Something in between. The baby stopped crying. Eyes fixed, face calm. The widow's spine chilled. What is that? A song for the ones who were taken. Taken where? Where the fire stays warm. The widow's eyes burned. You said this fire's not mine. It isn't. Then whose? Althea looked at the child. It remembers who lit it. The widow swallowed. Sheriff Hodge said the same. Althea didn't respond. The room fell still. Then she spoke again. He was born of silence. What do you mean? His mother wasn't allowed to scream. Who was she? A girl with no name. Everyone has a name. Not in that house. The governor's house? Number the one behind it, the one built in shadow. I don't know that place. You do. The widow's breath hitched. The well house? Althea nodded. They kept girls there. Number they lost them. The baby shifted. Althea leaned close. You carry something ancient now. He's just a child. No one's just anything. The widow stepped back. I came here for the truth. And I gave it. Number you gave riddles. Althea turned away. You want more, you'll have to dig for it. Where? In the ashes. The widow stared, then turned. The baby blinked slowly. Didn't cry. Didn't smile. She stepped out into the orchard light. Didn't speak again until they were home. The fire was still burning. No new wood added, no smoke in the flue, just warmth, and something beneath it that felt old and watching. She held the baby close and whispered again. Who lit you? The fire said nothing, but the flame rose just enough to show her face in the glass. The knock came before dawn, hard, no hesitation. The widow stood from the rocker, baby in her arms, the quilt loose across his back. She didn't ask who it was. She already knew. She opened the door. Sheriff Hodge stood there, coat soaked from the mist, ledger clutched under one arm. He didn't wait for an invitation, walked in like the house was his. You read it, she said. I read what's left. Page 46? Still gone. Then why are you here? He set the ledger on her table. Because some names weren't written at all. She moved toward the hearth, baby against her chest. Fire behind her, he stayed standing. You stitched that name into the cloth? No. Who did? You'd know better than me. Are you saying it was my mother? Number, I'm saying someone like her. You think this child's mine. I think he's someone's. And that scares you? Number, it scares you. He opened the ledger, turned to a page near the back. Do you know this name? She didn't look. Eunice Calhoun. No. She lived in the governor's well house. I thought no one lived there. No one did. But the girls stayed. She shifted her grip on the baby. You think he's hers? I think you know better than to ask that. You think he's Eunice's? I think he's fireborn. Does that mean something to you? Means the flames weren't accidental. She moved toward the table. You came here to take him. He didn't answer. You think he belongs to the state now? He said nothing. She stared at him. Say it. You're not his blood. No. You're not his kin. No. You're not on record. Neither is he. The sheriff exhaled slowly. You think that's a shield? Number, I think that's a match. She pulled the cloth from the drawer, set it on the table. I opened it, the name stitched clean. Benedict. Who burned the ends? She asked. He didn't move. She pressed. You recognize the thread? He looked at the cloth, then at her. I recognize the heat. He reached into his coat, pulled something from his inner pocket, set it down. A badge, torn at the edge, blackened. The shine is long gone. He slid it across the table. This one belonged to Deputy Ray. She didn't touch it. He's dead, she said. Number just disappeared. Like the girl. Like half this town's memory. She lifted the baby higher. He cried when Althea spoke. Is she still alive? Yes. Is she still remembering? She remembers too much. Hodge nodded once. Does she ever say who lit the fire? She said it wasn't the mother. He sat down finally, laid his hand over the ledger. I was 13 when I first heard the name Benedict. It wasn't a baby. It was a room. That's what they called it. She didn't blink. He continued. Room Benedict, meant for the ones who made noise. The girls? The girls, the women, anyone who asked where the ledger kept the missing pages. She stepped forward. You helped them. No. You stayed quiet. I did. Why? Because I was born in the house that I forgot. She set the baby in the crate. He watched her do it. You came here to take him? I came here to give you a choice. What choice? To name him on record. And if I don't, he stays a ghost. She looked at the badge. It's warm. It always is. Is that normal? No. She stared at him. What's the second choice? He stood again, closed the ledger. Burn the badge. Why? So the fire knows you're watching. She didn't speak. He walked to the door. You said this house warmed too many lies, she called. He turned back. It did. You mean the fires? I mean the names that were never spoken. She looked down at the baby, then at the cloth, then at the badge. You want coffee? He shook his head. I want this town to stop forgetting. He stepped outside, left the door open. The badge stayed on the table. Dull, black, warm. She picked it up, didn't flinch, hold it in one hand, the cloth in the other. Benedict stirred, didn't cry. She looked at the fire, then fed it both, just enough to keep it alive. She dreamed of fire. It wasn't flames screaming or wood cracking. It was quiet, steady. Inside the barn, curling up the walls like it belonged there. The child didn't cry, just watched it climb toward the rafters, quilt still wrapped, hands still open. She woke up coughing. Smoke. Real. Not a dream. She was on her feet before she could think. The hearth fire hadn't moved. Still low, still tame. The barn. She threw open the door. The sky was gray, not from fog. The smoke rolled thick across the yard, slow, heavy, without wind. She ran. Quilt still over her nightgown. No shoes. The grass was damp, then warm, then hot. The barn was burning. No scream. No chaos. Just fire, like it had been waiting for someone to notice. She stopped at the edge. The doors were open. She didn't remember leaving them that way. She stepped in. The heat didn't push her back. It welcomed her. Her eyes scanned fast. Hay already curled black, beams groaning, dust glowing like stars. But the cradle, in the corner where she'd left it for warmth, sat untouched. Not a mark. No smoke. No soot. The baby is still sleeping inside it. She stepped closer. The air around him wasn't hot. It was still. She touched his cheek. Warm, not flushed. His chest rose, slow and soft. She lifted him, stepped back. The barn cracked above her. The rafters let go. She didn't run, just turned and walked out. The fire rose behind her, but didn't follow. She wrapped him tighter in the quilt and stood on the porch. Her feet were black from the ash. Her lungs were full of smoke that hadn't hurt. She didn't hear him ride up. I just felt him. Sheriff Hodge sat on his horse halfway down the ridge, watching. She didn't wave. He didn't call. He just sat there, hat low, mouth shut. The fire behind her burned quiet. She stepped down. He met her halfway. I saw it, he said. I know. I didn't see anyone else. You weren't meant to. That baby was in there. Yes, and lived. Untouched. He looked over her shoulder. That barn should have taken him. It didn't. He looked down at her arms. The quilt's clean. I know. He dismounted. I walked toward the wreck. You moved the cradle before? No. You sure? I was asleep. He crouched near the edge of the burned path, picked up something in his gloved hand, a charred horseshoe. He turned it over, frowned. Governor's mark. She stepped closer. What was it doing in my barn? He stood. Last I saw it, it was nailed over his stable. She took the shoe from his hand. It was still warm. What does that mean? He didn't answer right away. I think the barn remembers things. You think buildings have memories? I think this land does. They walked back to the porch. He looked at the cradle by the door. Still no name. She shook her head. Just Benedict. Full name? No. Last name? Doesn't seem like he came with one. He stared at the fire again. Have you ever heard about the girl they kept behind the governor's house? I've heard stories. They weren't stories. Who was she? No one knows. No one remembers? No one was allowed to remember. She shifted the baby to her other arm. You think this has something to do with her? I think this is her. The child? The fire. The wind changed. Smoke drifted toward the ridge. He sniffed the air. It's dying down. Too fast? Too clean. She sat on the step. He stayed standing. He didn't cry, she said. When? When I found him in the cradle. Not once? Not even a sound. That doesn't scare you. It should. You think he started it. I think he was waiting for it. The sheriff reached into his coat, pulled something from the inside pocket. A matchbox, plain, old, with one word carved into the wood. Room. He handed it to her. What is this? A piece of the well house. You took this 20 years ago. Why? I don't know. She turned it over. There was a mark carved on the bottom, a triangle. Inside it, a flame. She touched it with her thumb. It was warm. Have you ever seen that before? In the quilt. In the badge, too. Is it a family mark? It's a warning. She stood. What's it warn about? Names. He took the matchbox back, slid it into his pocket. You think the barn was a message? I think the barn was proof. Proof of what? That someone hasn't forgotten. She looked down at the baby. He opened his eyes. I buried a child once, she said. I know. You never asked where. I know. She turned to him. I didn't mark the grave. Most people don't. You think that matters? I think everything buried here finds a way to rise. The fire behind them cracked. He didn't turn. Are you leaving again? She asked. I always do. You taking him? No. Are you coming back? Yes. When? When the fire stays out too long. He tipped his hat, walked back to his horse. Before mounting, he said without looking, That barn burned once before. I know. The governor blamed lightning. You believe him? No. He mounted. Last time it burned, 3 girls vanished. Have you ever found them? We weren't looking. He rode off. The baby fell asleep again. She stood there a long time. The cradle was untouched, not even soot on the legs. She stepped inside, shut the door. The hearth fire was still lit, small now, but steady. She fed it a log and waited for the room to warm, then placed the child back in the crate and sat beside him, not speaking, not sleeping, just listening. The knock wasn't a knock, just fingers tapping twice against the open door. The widow didn't get up. She was by the hearth, rocking slowly, the baby in her arms, still wrapped in the quilt from the barn, still quiet, still watching her like he knew what the tapping meant. She turned her head. Althea stood in the doorway, wrapped in a shawl that used to be red. She held something folded in both hands. It looked too soft for a blanket and too worn for a gift. The widow spoke first. You walked all this way? Althea nodded once. You shouldn't be out. I know. It's too cold. Not where I'm going. The widow stood, adjusted the baby against her shoulder. Althea stepped in. Hold the folded thing out. It's not for you. Then why bring it? It's for the one who came after. The widow looked at the bundle. It wasn't heavy. It didn't look warm. She didn't reach for it. You mean the baby? I mean the reason. The reason what? The reason the fire stayed lit. The widow took the bundle. It unfolded slowly. The fabric opened into a half-finished quilt, patched in rows like memory. Some squares frayed. Some are too new. The threads changed color halfway through a seam, and in the dead center, a blank square, white, empty. The widow traced her finger over the edge of it. This was meant for someone. Yes. Who? The girl who stitched the name. The widow looked up. Eunice. She never got to finish it. What stopped her? Someone told her the child was gone. She believed it? She had to. The baby stirred, let out a small sigh. Althea looked at him. He's heavier than I imagined. You knew he'd come. I hoped. The widow folded the quilt and set it on the table. The blank square is still visible. The baby reached toward it. You think I should finish it? I think it's not yours until you do. The widow stepped back. I didn't ask for him. No one ever did. I didn't light that fire. No one ever admitted they had. The widow's jaw tightened. He's not my blood. Number, he's your test. The widow picked the quilt back up. The center square's too bright. Then burn it. What? Just the edges. Why? So it doesn't pretend to be clean. The baby blinked up at the fire. The widow turned to Althea. Have you ever stitched something you regretted? Every woman does. Did you rip it out? No. Why not? Because regret belongs in the pattern. The widow nodded once. Then I looked back at the empty square. You want tea? Althea stepped closer to the baby. No. You want to hold him? No. Afraid. Finished things break. The widow watched her face. What happens when it's done? It remembers who touched it. Touched what? The flame. Althea turned. I walked to the door. Before she stepped out, she said one more thing. Sew it tonight, or you'll forget why you didn't. Then she left. That night, the fire didn't need tending, but she sat beside it anyway. The baby was asleep in the crate, one hand out. One eye is almost open, like he was keeping watch over her while pretending not to. She unfolded the unfinished quilt, laid it flat across her knees. The threads weren't old, but the way they twisted was. She could see Althea's work in some patches, could see someone else's hand in others. The triangle stitch, the fire thread, the corner that folded back into a hidden name, but in the center, nothing. No mark, no symbol, just a clean white square, begging to be ruined. She picked up her needle, threaded it with orange, paused, then dipped the tip into ash. She sewed slowly. No flourishes, just one shape. A small flame. It took 7 passes, 7 loops, 7 knots. She tied the thread, bit it off, smoothed the cloth. The flame in the center looked like it had always been there. The baby stirred. Then I went again. She folded the quilt. I walked over to him, lifted the old one from his chest, replaced it with the unfinished one. He sighed, sank deeper, didn't wake. The fire behind her let out one low pop, then settled. She sat in the rocker, watched the flame, didn't touch it, didn't speak. And when she finally blinked, morning had already started, but the baby hadn't moved, still warm, still quiet, still covered in something that finally felt like it belonged. The board popped again, not loud, not sharp, just soft enough to catch her ear. She pressed it with her boot, felt it give. The baby was asleep in the crate by the hearth. The fire is low, but not fading. She knelt, ran her fingers along the edges. One board shifted more than the rest. It wasn't warped, it was lifted. On purpose. She worked her fingers beneath it, pried slow. Dust curled up from underneath. A thin breath of something older than the house. A bundle sat inside the hollow, flat, wrapped in cloth that once might have been white. She lifted it out, stood, and unwrapped it on the table. Inside was a folded letter. No envelope, no seal. Just paper, creased and soft. She unfolded it. Read the first line. To the governor's daughter. Her stomach turned. She read the rest. If you're reading this, it means the heat has come back. It means something made it through the wall they built around you, and it means I failed to stop it. Your father is not who the books say. He keeps clean pages, but writes his truths in ashes. I begged him not to unname the child. I begged him not to touch the fire. He said blood fixes everything. They told me the girl was gone, that the house was clean again, that nothing would return. But silence does not forget, neither does warmth. The baby is yours, or maybe he was ours, or maybe he belonged to the fire from the beginning. His name is not Benedict. That was mine. It's what they used when they needed a signature, but not a soul. He has no name now, only a promise. Keep him where the fire stays warm. If you forget, the house will too, and it will burn again. He doesn't cry. He remembers too much about that. Forgive me for leaving him. I wanted to carry him, but the badge was watching. The ledger has no space for warmth. I stitched what I could. The rest was ash. No signature, just a symbol at the bottom, a triangle with a flame inside. She folded the letter back. Her hands were shaking. She placed it down beside the lamp, then walked to the fire. It hadn't moved, still the same, still breathing. She turned. I looked at the baby. He was awake, watching her. The next morning, she went to the shed. Althea was outside with a basin of dark water. She didn't turn when she heard the widow's boots. You wrote it. Althea didn't move. The widow stepped closer, laid the letter down on the rail beside her. Tell me. Althea finally spoke. He wasn't supposed to survive. Who? The child. The governor's? Althea nodded once. And hers. The widow swallowed. So the rumors were true. Number the rumors were too kind. You stitched the note? I stitched the truth. That was all I had left. You called yourself Benedict. I had no other name. Why bury it under my house? You lived in the shadow of his. The widow clenched her jaw. He left that baby in a crate. I didn't leave him. But you didn't stop it. No. Why? Because I didn't think the fire would let him go. The widow picked up the letter again. You said he remembers too much. He does. Then why doesn't he cry? Because he knows what happens when someone listens. The widow took a long breath. Have you ever held him? No. Want to? Althea looked up for the first time. No. Why? Because finished things break. She returned to the house, set the baby in the crate, unfolded the letter once more, read the line again. The baby is yours, or maybe he was ours. The writing matched the first note exactly, the one that came in the crate. She opened the drawer, pulled out that one. She'd kept it, even burnt. Ashes stuck to the edge, but the corner still read, "This one belongs where the fire stays warm." She laid them side by side. Same slant, same pressure, same smudge at the edge of the letters. She looked at the quilt. The flame she'd stitched in the center was still bright, still clean, too clean. She reached for the ash bucket, rubbed her thumb through the cinders, smudged the flame until it dulled. The baby blinked. She whispered, "You knew." He didn't blink again. Sheriff Hodge came just past noon. Didn't knock, just walked in. He saw the letter, saw the burned note beside it, sat at the table. "You found the rest." She nodded. "Buried, beneath the floorboard. Your house keeps more than heat." She didn't respond. He picked up the letter, read it once. No questions this time. Set it down. She was the one, wasn't she? Yes. She hit him. She saved him. She lied to everyone. She had no choice. He leaned back. What now? She looked at the baby. I finished what she couldn't. You sure? No. But you will. Yes. He stood. I'll need the note. No. He paused. It's evidence. It's mine. He looked at her. Are you going to testify? I don't need to. He waited. You're not going to stop me? She asked. No. Why not? Because you're the first person in this town to say the truth out loud. She folded the note again, slipped it into her pocket. He stepped toward the fire. You think it knows? It remembers. He nodded. Then let it burn steady. He left. She stood over the crate, held the baby's hand in hers. I don't know your name. He blinked once. I don't know hers either. He made no sound. But I know what warmth is. She carried him to the rocker, sat beside the fire, held him close. I watched the flame steady itself again. The house was quiet. The letter stayed folded. But nothing was buried anymore. The widow heard boots on the porch before she saw him. No knock. Just wait. Slow. Heavy. Measured like someone walking through a past he hadn't earned. She didn't move. The baby was asleep beside the fire. The crate's quilt half slipped. The letter was still folded in her apron pocket. The sheriff opened the door himself. She didn't stand. You came early. I didn't sleep. She watched him step in, hat in hand, eyes down. He stayed near the threshold. I found her, he said. I know. She was buried by the tracks. No stone, no cross. She had a name? She did, once. You didn't write it. No. Why? They told me not to. She didn't speak. He finally looked at the child. He's mine. I know. He sat down in the old chair by the window, same one her husband used to nap in after splitting logs. He didn't take off his coat. She waited. I was 23, he said. She was 17. I didn't ask questions I should have. What was her name? Lena. Last name? They took it. You gave her the child? No. You let them take her? Yes. She sat still. He looked at the fire. Was she the governor's? No. But I lived under him. Yes. She was your silence. She was my mistake. The fire cracked once. He didn't flinch. She didn't scream, he said. Not when they took her, not when she gave birth. You were there. I stood outside. Coward. Yes. She stood, lifted the child. He doesn't look like you. I know. But he listens like you do. He didn't respond. She walked to the table, set the baby down, picked up the needle. You gave him to me. You were the only person who wouldn't hand him back. You thought I'd keep him quiet. I thought you'd make him loud. She threaded the needle. What's his name? I never gave him one. Then who did? She did. And you forgot it? Number Y burned it. She turned. You buried her without a name, burned him before it was spoken. And now you want what? He looked at her, tired. Witness. You think that clears you? No. You think that saves him? No. Then why? Because I owe the fire. She moved to the hearth. It doesn't want debt. It wants the truth. She paused. You know what he did last night? Nos. He held the badge. The sheriff blinked. Did it burn? No. Did it glow? Yes. He looked down at his hands. I never thought it would live past her. She rocked the baby in silence. He rose, stepped closer. You think he forgives me? He doesn't even know you. That's not what I asked. She didn't answer. He nodded. You want me gone? Yes. He turned toward the door, paused. That house owes me. It owes everyone. Number not like this. She stared at him. You think it kept her warm. I think it remembers her scream. She walked past him, opened the door. The wind came in sharp. You'll come back. I always do. He stepped outside. She closed the door behind him. She sat beside the fire, the needle still threaded. She sewed one name into the underside of the quilt. Lena, small, plain, hidden. Then another beside it. Benedict. She tied the knot, bit the thread, and held the baby until the fire dimmed. But I didn't go out. The sheriff's boots left ash on the porch, black streaks, heavy, wet with morning thaw. She saw the prince before she saw him. He didn't knock, just opened the door like he already lived in what was coming next. She stood by the hearth, baby on her hip. The crate was behind her, fire low. Ledger closed on the table. His eyes went to the child first, then to the floor. You alone? Yes. You knew I'd come. Always do. I shouldn't have waited. You did. He stepped in, kept his distance. I came for him. She didn't speak. I don't need permission. Still asking anyway. I'm not. Then what are you doing here? I want it done right. You had your chance. He glanced at the fire. It's still warm. It never cooled. He nodded. Does that mean something to you? Means he's still mine. You're not blood. You didn't claim him. I'm claiming now. No. You can't stop me. I already did. He took a breath, deep like it hurt. I buried her myself. I know. No marker. I know that too. She never asked for one. You didn't ask either. I wasn't brave then. You still aren't. He stepped forward. She moved between him and the crate. Are you going to fight me? I don't need to. What happens if I take him? He stops burning. He looked at the fire again. Do you ever think I did it to protect him? No. Not even once. You don't protect someone by hiding their name. He looked toward the table, saw the ledger. That thing's no use. It remembers. It's burned. Like the truth. He reached out, touched the edge of the book. His fingers left ash. I was 19 when I met her. She was 17. I didn't know what would happen. You did. He flinched. I didn't want her to get hurt. You stood back while she screamed. I wasn't the one who... No. But you were the one who let them. He pulled his hand away from the book. The governor gave orders. You obeyed. I was scared. You were complicit. He turned to the crate. The baby blinked. You don't even know his real name. Don't need to. He has no papers. He has breath. No one signed for him. He signed with silence. The sheriff's shoulders sank. I thought he'd cry. He doesn't. I thought he'd scream like she did. He's listening. To what? To you. He stepped closer. Just one step. I didn't want him to get hurt. You left him in a box. I didn't know where else. You knew this house. I trusted you. You used me. He shook his head. I couldn't bring him home. Because of your wife? She left. Because of the girl? She knew. You think that lets you off? No. Then why are you here? I want to give him something. Too late. He reached into his coat, held out a folded paper. What is it? Birth record. Unfiled. You forged it. I kept it. She didn't take it. You expect me to thank you? No. He looked down at the boy. He has my eyes. No. You sure? Yes. He nodded. I thought he'd look like her. He does. Even in silence. Especially in silence. The fire popped. They both turned toward it. You said once that fire keeps truth alive. It does. He nodded to the child. Then he's the last truth I have. She didn't speak. He stepped back. I looked around the room like it hurt to see it warm. I used to think if I buried things deep enough, they'd stop echoing. They don't. No. She picked up the ledger. I opened it. Pages were burned in the middle, corners curled, but one page, untouched, sat near the back. Blank. She pointed to it. This one's his. He's not in there. Not yet. Are you going to write him in? No. Why not? Because he doesn't belong to paper. He swallowed. Then what's the page for? For those who never came back. He sat down, finally took off his hat, set it on his knee. You think she hated me? No. You think she forgave me? No. You ever do? No. He nodded. I looked at the baby. I wanted to keep him. You didn't. I want to know. You're still not ready. I could be. No. He looked at the fire again. You feed it. Only when it asks. It's still burning. So is she. He stood. I looked at the quilt in the crate. That was hers. Number that was mine. He ran his hand over his jaw. Looked old all of a sudden. I lost everything. You gave it away. You think I deserve another chance? No. But you'd let me try? No. He took the paper back, slipped it into his coat. You know what it's like to carry silence that long? Yes. Have you ever dropped it? Once. What happened? I heard her name. He blinked, his mouth open but didn't speak. She waited. He stepped to the door, paused. You still got that badge? It's in the fire. Does it burn? No. Good. He opened the door. Althea stood there, ledger in her arms. Her eyes were cold. Her face was unreadable. I thought you were dead, he said. Almost. She walked past him, sat down in his place, set the ledger between them, said nothing. He looked at her. You wrote it. She didn't answer. He nodded. I looked back at the widow. You'll keep him safe. I already have. He tipped his hat. I walked down the steps, boots black with ash. She rocked beside the fire. The baby lay asleep. The ledger sat open. A blank page waited. She didn't write. She didn't speak. She just listened. And the fire didn't die. Smoke rose behind the governor's house for the first time in 10 years. This time, no one ran. No alarms were rung. No buckets fetched. The flames weren't wild. They breathed up slowly like something inside had been waiting to return. The barn had stood half dead since the last fire. Charred doors, bones of rafters, sagging roofline. It hadn't been touched since the girl disappeared, and silence swallowed the names. But now the doors were open. Ash swept. A circle cleared at the center. They came without being asked. One by one. Faces from town. Old families. Men in boots who hadn't spoken to each other in years. Mothers gripping children by the wrist. The woman who ran the post. The boy with the scar near his eye. No one brought food. No one laughed. The wind carried no sound but breath. The widow came last. She walked alone. No cart, no coat, just the child in her arms and the ledger under one arm. The unfinished quilt hung over her shoulder. Her boots left no prints behind her. The fire was already lit when she reached the hill. The sheriff was already there. He didn't wear the badge. Hadn't in days. It wasn't his anymore. He stood by the barn doors, hands empty, hat in hand. When he saw her, he nodded once. She didn't nod back. "You know what this is?" she asked. "I do." "Still going in?" "I have to." "You don't." "I know." The fire inside the barn was not hungry. It didn't crackle. It didn't spit. It just held steady, quiet, tall enough to be seen, small enough to trust. She looked at the child. "He didn't cry last night." "Still listening?" the sheriff asked. "He always does." He turned to the barn again. "I've seen it burn 3 times now. This is the last." He looked at her. "You sure?" She didn't answer. Althea stepped forward from the crowd. Ledger opened in her hands. The pages fluttered in the breeze. Most were burned. A few are missing, but one near the end was clean, empty, saved. She held it up. The sheriff didn't look at it. The widow stepped toward her. "Write his name." Althea hesitated. "What is it?" The widow looked down at the child, then said, clear, without pause, "Elias." Althea nodded, took her pen, wrote slowly, bold, "Elias." The name sank into the paper like it had waited there all along. The sheriff watched the ink dry. "You sure it's not mine?" "No," the widow said. "You sure I shouldn't raise him?" "You already had your chance." He looked down at his hands. "They're burned." "Yes." He looked at her. "You think I deserve to walk into that fire?" "No." "Then why are you letting me?" "Because some fires aren't punishment." He took a deep breath. "Then what are they?" "Memory." He stepped past her. Althea didn't move. No one from the crowd did. He stopped at the barn threshold, turned once. "He has your eyes." "No," the widow said. "He has hers." The sheriff didn't smile. He walked into the barn. The fire didn't rise to meet him. It waited. When he reached the center, he knelt. The flame touched the edge of his coat. He didn't scream. The crowd didn't flinch. The fire stayed soft, glowed brighter, then dimmed. No smoke escaped the door. No ash drifted. Only stillness. The widow stepped forward, set the quilt down near the threshold. She didn't retrieve the badge, didn't call his name. She turned back toward the hill. The baby shifted in her arms. She whispered, "It's done now." He didn't cry. He never did. Later, after the sun fell and the townsfolk were gone, she brought the crate back into the house, emptied it of what it used to be, lined it with new cloth, sewed his name into the edge of the rail, Elias. She didn't sleep that night. She sat near the fire, listened to it breathe. It never dimmed again.